welcome, you sick bastards, to this week's episode of the Hot Death Horror Podcast. Uh, gonna have a little bit of a doozy this evening. Got my old buddy here, some guy I used to work with, really good friend of mine, not in the movie industry or a filmmaker, but definitely a film fan, a horror fan, sporting the Jason mask over there. Uh, Massachusetts one and only John DeCosta coming on the show. Welcome, sir. Thanks for coming on the old podcast with me. We're gonna talk some shit about some horror movies and TV shows. How you doing?
All righty. That's an introduction I always could warm my heart with. Thank you for the invite today to be able to come on and talk to you. And pretty excited about this. I'm doing fine, and I want to say that I did catch Dustin's movie, and it was pretty awesome. I hope everybody eventually gets a chance to see it and say a lot of great things about it. He worked hard with it, and he's done some amazing things. So, props for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate the kind words because yeah, it was definitely a labor of love. That thing was it was a lot of fun to do, and it also pissed me off more than anything in my life has ever pissed me off. So but it's something that I want to keep doing. I'm like, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I do hope other folks enjoy it. It is still, as of this episode, it is still, in distribution phase. So POV Horror picked it up for distribution. It's going to go live on their website and their streaming app first. Um, and then he's going to work on distribution to, Tubi, Plex, all the other mostly ad-based free streaming apps. There might be a few subscription-based streaming apps in there, but anyway, yeah, that's coming in the near future. That usually takes a couple of months to get everything worked out there. So right now we're having a little bit of a snafu with the subtitles. The SRT file that I sent him turned out to not be so great, and I think that was my fault. So he's going to be a gentleman and a scholar and help me redo it and all that, deduct all the fees from royalties. So that's pretty awesome of him. Um, so yeah, there's that. So yeah, Mr. John DeCosta here, horror fan extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Been around, seen some of the classics. We were actually just having a prior to the podcast having a discussion about the old Walking Dead there, and I was saying that, yep, got the Saviors right there, sporting some Negan and some what? Don't tell me what's the damn bat's name? Lucille. There we go, Lucille.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I had a quick little brain fart there. Yeah. Um, So I think that's a good opening point here. We can just get right into some Walking Dead because we were having a pretty good conversation, and I'm like, hold up, let's get this on the podcast because we got some pretty decent stuff to say. I was saying that I used to be a huge fan. I still am a huge fan. I still really enjoy the show, but it used to be kind of in my top three until probably season towards the end of season 8, it kind of started to, tank off a little bit. I think that's when a lot of fans kind of started to lose interest. Um, but I do hear that this final season kind of ramps it back up. I haven't seen it yet. I've only seen the first episode, so I'm pretty excited to see what's coming because as I'm just going to be flat out honest, I was kind of bored with the last season and a half. Like it really was just kind of boring, you know.
Yeah.
I appreciated what they were trying to do. There was a lot of backstory and a lot of episodes, and I appreciated that they did that. But I kind of wished that had come a little earlier. But I won't beat that dead horse even more to death. Um, we were talking about the episode where Negan and his wife they Negan kind of first started to make the change, if you will, where his wife was dying of cancer. He was a high school gym teacher. The whole zombie apocalypse thing had kind of just started. And we were talking about what we would do in that situation. And I'm curious to get your take on it first before I give mine. So go ahead and What would you do? Like in that situation, zombie apocalypse is breaking out, your family is, you're stuck in your house. What what's the first thing John DeCosta does?
Pack a lunch. No. As we were kind of discussing, ultimately the main goal is survival. And it's funny because whether it's around a campfire or around a cooler, discussions like this, we could always kind of talk about what we would do, but we really never have that true idea what it would be like because it's kind of unimaginable to a sense. But ultimately, it's the survival, and it can change somebody. There's no doubt. Could you really think of like would humanity really succumb to these kind of situations and what we've seen? And you wonder like maybe it would. But the survival side is going to be first and foremost, and then you would probably ultimately do things that you never thought you could. But when it's your loved one and your family, and somebody's trying to take that away from you, you probably do some scary things. And then it starts to harden you, mold you. Does it allow you to carry on? Do you mentally break down? How do you? It's very interesting. But ultimately, yes, we would have to survive. That's what Negan ultimately did. He tried to do everything he could for his wife, but then it did change him, and then he became the leader. And he did it in a way where he had to earn respect, but make sure he kept everybody in line. And he did some pretty unimaginable things that shocked the world when he came onto the scene in that famous episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. You nailed it. You have to survive. When talking to people that have never seen the show, I've always told them like it's not just a show about zombies. Like, of course, the zombies they play a critical role in the show, because ultimately that's what the show is about is the zombie apocalypse taking place. But at the end of the day, the show is about what these people are doing to survive during this zombie apocalypse from season 1, episode 1, all the way through season 11, episode however many are in the final season, because again, I haven't seen it, but that's the best way that I can try and describe it to people that haven't seen the show is it's not just a show about zombies. Even if zombies aren't your thing, I think that there's still people that could love the show because it has a deeper story to it. And like you said, I'm a family man as well. I'm married, I have kids just like yourself. And yeah, you really don't know what you would do until you're put in that situation. Like, I think it was Mike Tyson that said a long time ago, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. You know,
Right.
you know, and,
Right.
I mean, there's that kind of rings true, because a zombie apocalypse or any kind of apocalyptic event that causes folks to literally have to kill and steal and all that to survive. You think you know what you would do. There are some people out there that want to walk around as Billy Badass all day long, and I would do this and I would do that. And maybe you would, but do you really know? No, you don't, because until you've got someone or something at your door forcing you into a situation where it's your family or that person or thing, you don't know what you would do. You could have the biggest, baddest person on earth freeze up and get their whole family killed, and you could have the the meekest of the meek little, 130-pound soaking wet dude end up being the leader because he did what it takes to save his family, and which kind of is what Negan is. That's where I'm going with this. Is Negan? He's not a very big, intimidating guy at all.
No.
He says some scary stuff. He says some pretty messed up stuff, and he like you said, he does some pretty messed up things with Lucille
Yes.
there. But he wasn't always that way. Negan was kind of a level-headed high school gym teacher. until he was put in a situation where he had to do what he had to do to survive. And his, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen it, his wife, what happened to her kind of changed him. It was like
Yes.
he was doing what he had to do to keep her alive and well and all that until he didn't have to anymore. And then it's like, well, shit, now what do I do? Now I'm all by myself. Well, I'm just going to go out and this is how I'm going to survive. And people they're going to respect me and they're going to serve me. And I'm going to bash some heads in to get that respect because ultimately, I don't think it was because Negan was like some big scary badass. I think he was scared. I think he was scared, and that's how he dealt with it. Is he wasn't going to show that weakness. He wasn't going to show that he was scared. So by being this intimidating sounding, presence with this bat, saying all his famous one-liners, you better put your shitting pants on because you're about to
Yeah.
shit your pants. Like
Right.
that.
Right.
That's great. But anyway, yeah. So
Well, let me touch on one thing. Think
okay.
about this. Like, we know the backstory. We got to see that.
Uh huh.
But think about the saviors. You think they had that knowledge of him? This guy comes along and they probably had no idea. And the biggest thing is, like you were talking about, we know what happened to his wife, and now he has to carry on in a world that obviously is so different. And think about waking up every day and trying to have some purpose to carry on. Because he lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then he still has to ultimately have some purpose to carry on and then become who he is, and then almost like living kind of a lie to a certain degree until later on. So we as fans got to see the episode and we longed for it for so long. We were like, oh yeah, finally we have a backstory of what he was about and where it came. Now the graphic novel, little spoiler, if you will, if you watch it ahead, read it ahead of time. But it I think they did well with that. Obviously, big fan now. And when you first see him, you're not a fan. We were worried, to be honest. We were like, oh, I don't know if I could take this every time he steps onto the scene. And yeah, he's done great with it. Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I mean, it's funny if you watch him in other movies, though. What do you always see? He can be anybody else.
Yep.
I think he was in The Watchmen too, and he was bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's just always going to be Negan, no matter what he does.
Yep. Well, yeah, because he's that iconic character now. I mean, Jeffrey Dean
Yes.
Morgan. He's been around forever. He's
Yep.
he's been an actor forever. But you're right. Now that he's landed that iconic role, it doesn't matter if you saw him in something he did in 1989. If you're just now seeing it, you're seeing Negan in 1989.
Right.
So yeah, and that's funny too because I just recently watched well, not super recently, but I watched he did a horror film called The Unholy.
Okay.
Wasn't awesome. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was definitely a little bit of a slow burn. I kind of want to rewatch it though because I think that's one of those films that you probably miss stuff the first time you watch it. Um, so I'd like to rewatch it, but that'll be a different discussion for a different day. His character, I mean, he almost dressed like Negan even. Like he had the black leather jacket and the
Yeah.
beard. I mean, it was like he went
Yep.
from the Walking Dead set over to that movie set, like
Yeah.
so I don't
You
know.
wonder if that role led him to this one. Maybe somebody saw The Unholy, was like, we gotta get this guy, cast him as Negan in this part.
Yeah. Well, The Unholy came after Walking Dead for sure.
Oh, it did.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a recent. It's probably I think it's 2020 or 2021. Is
Okay.
when when that came out. So yeah, that's post
So it's
Walking
the
Dead.
transition the other way. It was
Yeah.
like the Negan role caught
Yeah,
him this role.
right. And
That's what I really was saying.
yeah. I can edit that out. It's no big deal. No, but it could be, but that's yeah. The point of that story was that I watched that movie, and I think that was my problem with that movie is I was trying to quit watching Negan, But I just
Right.
kept seeing Negan. I think it's probably a good movie. I don't think it got the best reviews. I think a lot of people didn't like it, which is unfortunate for a lot of films because there are a lot of films out there that are just awesome and people just shit all over it. I still kind of am one of those types of people from now, from time to time because it's just kind of in our nature to like what we like and dislike what we dislike. Um, but now, having made a film, I can say I have way more appreciation for what it takes to make a movie.
Right.
Even though my little piddly thing cost me next to nothing to make, and I did it all myself. Like, I'm not James Cameron. I understand this, but I can respect what it takes, even to make a bad film. I can respect what it takes to make it now. So I try to go into films with a little bit more of an open mind nowadays. Having done my own, I can sit and watch a movie and still not like it, but go at least I can appreciate what they were trying to do, and I'm not just going to shit all over it. Whereas
Right.
before, I would have been that type of person who's like, man, that movie sucked. It blew so hard. Like
What
that
was he
still
thinking?
yeah, exactly. Like that still might be an opinion of mine, but I'm gonna have a little bit more tact and diplomacy when I give that bad review. It's like, yeah, it still
Yeah.
wasn't, the movie wasn't for me. It wasn't great, but you know.
Right.
So, kind of like The Walking Dead, since we're still talking about that. I'm not a huge fan of the last couple of seasons, but I can at least appreciate. I can pull some positives out of it, and not just say, oh, the last couple seasons sucked. I'm not watching this show anymore because as you probably know, there's a lot of people that did that. After the infamous season 7 or season 8, I think it was when Negan did what he did.
Yes.
A
Yes.
lot of people jumped ship. They're like, "Oh no, I'm not watching this no
Right.
more."
They weren't sure if they could handle the graphic nature of it all.
Yeah,
And I think AMC recognized that. And I don't know if they did some cuts because you know how the situations in movies are shows the unedited, the uncut version,
right.
and then who knows? But there was, I can totally understand that, and I heard that was the case. That some people like we can't do this, and we were worried, and then it was like, oh, okay, good. We're gonna roll with this, and we were determined. We stayed in it, and we're glad we did. We just gotta kind of finish that last second half of the final season.
Yeah, yeah. No, I really want to get into the last season because they're already coming out with the spin-offs. They're already doing the spin-offs. I know Fear the Walking Dead has been out for a while, and
Yep,
I'm
that's almost done.
I'm a little bit ashamed to say I've not seen 1 second of that show.
Okay,
Yeah, I haven't seen a frame of that show, and I want
right.
to, but now it's
Yeah,
almost done too. So it's kind of like, well, shit. Like now I've got what 6, 7 seasons of that show to watch.
you can binge a lot these days. You just got to find the time.
Yeah, yeah, I can, and I I don't have as much time as
Nope.
I
Life
would like.
happens.
Yeah, yeah, I would like to have, but I do have time to binge. My schedule does allow for quite a bit of binging. So, especially, and I might get some hate for this too, but especially like when Stranger Things comes out. That I I never watch Stranger Things like an episode at a week, or like it's always a 1 day affair. I'm done. I start it in the
Yeah,
morning and I'm done at night. Like I can't stop watching that freaking show.
yeah,
It's so good.
yeah. Well, to add to that, oh man, the last episode or the last season, I hate to admit this, we've only seen the first, and we gotta finish it. And we get caught up in so many things because there's so much out there now. And you get you haven't watched that yet? Breaking Bad? What? You haven't watched that?
Yep.
No. What? And I'm like, listen, man, it's hard. And there's just so much out there. There's a lot of great stuff out there. There's definitely different genres. You go in different directions. And not to get off topic with the horror and stuff, but like we're gonna finish the Terminal List with Chris Pratt,
Yep.
and we can't wait to finish that. And once we're done with that, it's like, all right, we have to either get back to Walking Dead, which I think we should do, and then spin it on to Stranger Things, because we just don't want to be too far. Like, what was it, Ozark? Another one. Like,
Yep.
what? You haven't watched that? You got to be kidding me.
Yep. We're incredibly lucky to be alive in a time where content is so good. Like there's a lot of shit to get into nowadays. There really is.
Right.
And that's been my problem the last year or so, is so much good content has come out. I can't just commit to one. So
Right.
but I like I said, I do with certain shows like Stranger Things. When that comes out, I'm like, nope, nothing else is happening this day off other than Stranger Things. Like, I'm camping right here and I'm watching this show, episode 1 to the last episode. Now, last season, I won't give anything away because you said you haven't seen it. You said you've seen season 1?
No. We saw episode 1 of the last season.
Oh, okay. So you've seen all the way to last season, but just episode 1.
Right. And then we saw the first one, and we were like, whoa, this is getting a little dark, a little creepy.
So it really is. The last season gets super dark and creepy. And as I'm sure you noticed by the first episode, each episode is literally a movie. They're all an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this last season, it wasn't something I could just do in a day, because each episode is so freaking long. And I mean, I think it was the last 2 episodes were like pushing 2 hours each. I mean, the Duffer Brothers, man, they went all out on this last season. Like they raised the bar. Like they really raised the bar for a lot of shows. And I don't know if they're going to do that with Stranger Things 5. I hear that that's still going to be kind of the theme going into Stranger Things 5. I hope it is. Like, selfishly, I hope every episode is 3 hours and there's 100 episodes. but that's not going to happen. But okay, so I won't give anything away. That is rough, though, man. Like, how do you keep from getting spoiled? Because that's literally all anybody talked about all summer last summer was. I'm sure you know the epic Eddie guitar scene, right? Like,
and you know what? I try to. We'll just say that social media starts to happen. No, I'm going to keep scrolling. I try to do a good job not to be spoiled. We did the same thing with Walking Dead, because there was stuff and we're like scrolling through when we're trying to get caught up, and Ezekiel and the lion, the tiger he had. Wait, what's that? And Carl and Rick and no, because even movie trailers to a certain degree. If there's a movie that we're like really jonesed about, I want to be surprised, because sometimes these trailers show, in my opinion, too much.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to the element of surprise that still exists, and there's a few things that we can control with that. And so I want to be surprised. Like, all I know with the last season is Running Up the Hill with Kate Bush. I mean, I know that song's in there in one of the episodes. That's all I know.
Well, it's in more than one episode, I'll tell you that. That's not spoiling anything. It's in more than one episode. But okay, so I won't go too much into it then. I won't even go into it at all, because you haven't seen but the first episode. So okay.
No, you motivated me. So we're gonna I got vacation coming up, so you have motivated me. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. We're gonna finish. We're finished The Walking Dead. We're gonna finish that. There you go.
You will not be disappointed. I will tell you that. You will not be disappointed. Prior to Stranger Things 4, Stranger Things 3 was my favorite. I mean, they're all good. They're all like season 1. Season 1 was phenomenal. Season 2 I didn't like a lot when it first came out. But then I rewatched season 2 and I'm like, this is great. Why didn't I like this?
Oh, right, right.
And then season 3, though, I think season 3 probably still is my favorite, only because I'm an 80s kid. I love everything about the 80s, and
that's the best era right there.
It is. And season 3, I mean, obviously the whole show takes place in the 80s, but I think season 3 really portrayed the nostalgia of the 80s, good and bad. It portrayed what it was like to be alive in the 80s the best. With everything happening in the mall and the way they dressed, and to be a kid in the 80s, I think was portrayed the best in season 3. It was portrayed well in season 4. I won't say it wasn't, but season 4 takes a dark freaking turn. You already saw episode 1, so you know that. Um, and that's all I'll say. I will literally leave it at that. That's all I'll say. Season 4 takes a really, really dark turn, and you won't be disappointed, sir. You will not.
Right. One series though we did finish, since we're on, obviously the horror podcast, and it was based off the game, The Last of Us. We did watch all of those.
Okay.
Because the funny thing is, like I like to play games,
Mm-hmm.
And I like the Xbox, PlayStation, and I like a lot of campaigns and things like that. Others like to just stick to Call of Duties and the Fortnites and this and that. And I'm not saying they're bad. It's just I like to get into a story with a campaign. You go from the beginning to the end.
Agreed.
Interesting thing was, here's The Last of Us. I start to play it, and my wife really got into it. And it was the only video game genre campaign that she literally was like, do not play this until I'm sitting next to you because I want to follow the storyline. And she did for both the first and second game. Like, she was into it.
Wow.
And we'd sit there together and be like, oh my God, the clickers in here. And then you'd hear that stuff in your sleep and you're like, holy smoke. And she would sit there and cross stitch or whatever, but it was like a cool little bonding moment.
Yeah.
While I play, she's doing that. So then when HBO was like, hey, we're gonna do this, we were like, what? And we did. We watched the whole thing, and they came out like every I don't know if it was a Tuesday or Thursday. However, watched them all. Couldn't get enough of it, and they're about to. I think they're already filming the second part.
Yeah, I think they are. I think you're right. I have not seen that show. That's another one. I have not seen a second of that show, but it's on the list. I want to watch it really badly. Full disclosure, though, I haven't played the games, so I feel kind of lost a little bit. I played a little bit of the first one because a long time ago when I first got a PS4, that was the game that it came with. I got like the
Okay.
I got the Last of Us PS4, the Last of Us edition or whatever. So it came with the Last of Us. That was like 10 years ago or something. It was a while ago. And I played it and I really enjoyed it, but I found it really hard. Like I could not. I don't know. I'm not very good at video games. I'm with you 100%. I like a story. That's how I like my movies too. Like I don't mind a slow burn movie as long as the story's good. Same with video games. I am a sucker for the Telltale series video games, the Dark Pictures anthology games where it's you pick, you get like an A, B, C, and D choice of what, like the Walking Dead video games, the Telltale Walking Dead video games, where it's like it pauses for a second and then you get to pick like A, B, C, or D, and that dictates how the story goes. I love those games. Those are, I mean, those are almost exclusively the only types of games I'll play anymore because it's like watching. It's like playing a movie almost. It's like watching a movie while playing a video game. And I don't know. Until Dawn was one of my favorite games. The Dark Pictures anthology games those are probably my favorite currently. They're so good. Anyway, but yeah. So I like to see a story, and I just couldn't really devote enough time to get into The Last of Us. So I never finished the game, the first one, never even played the second one at all, and haven't seen the show. So I'm kind of behind the times on that one, but I really want to see the show.
I will say this though, it's done so well that there were people that didn't even realize that it was based off a game, and you don't even have to play the game to get into this and go, wow.
Right.
So that's the cool part on that. But I'm going to touch on something real interesting though with the video games. These kind of get video games where you ever have a situation though where you're playing and just like what we talked about with survival, right? But in a video game where you could get away with things because you know it's not real, but you're doing things that you normally wouldn't do in real life. And you just kind of go, huh, I really probably wouldn't do that ever in real life, but in this case, I'm going to do it. My son would get like, Dad, don't do that to these people, like the open world games. You can go and
Grand
smack
Theft
them or,
Auto.
yeah, things like
Yep.
that. And I'm like, this is my chance to act out, man.
Yep.
So,
No, that's funny that you say that because I do the exact same thing. But Grand Theft Auto, I like those games. But Red Dead Revolver or Red Dead Redemption,
redemption,
Red
yes.
Dead Redemption 2, there it is. That's the one, the big one that just came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, it took me 2.5 years, but I finally completed the game. I
Oh,
I won't say that I 100% completed it because I don't know if anybody can 100% complete that game. Like there's so much and it's like 104 gigs, it's a huge
yeah,
game. It's
right.
open world. They keep putting patches in it. They keep adding to it. So I don't know if you can 100% that game, but I completed it actually after moving to Texas. Actually, I started playing it in Washington on the PS4, and then I got an Xbox, so I had to start all over again from the beginning.
Oh, okay.
And then we moved here, and I finished it here in Texas. So 2 states and 2 consoles later, I finally finished the game,
Hey, there you
and
go.
that's an epic game. That really is. It's not horror related, but that's fine. It's a video game that we can talk about. I love that game. I don't know if you've played it, but it's made by Rockstar, the same people that did Grand Theft Auto. So think Grand Theft Auto with
Right,
cowboys.
right, right.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's
Phenomenal
just
game.
like any other Assassin's Creed. You got an open world, and you can just go up to somebody and just, kill them. And sometimes I just feel like jumping off and innocent people. And again, my son would be like, why'd you do that? I just felt like
Yeah, because
it.
I'm never going to do anything like that in real life. So
Yeah,
why not?
exactly. Right. So,
Yeah. No, I like the open world games too, but again, with the choice games, I like those the best. Dark
mhm.
Pictures Anthology. Have you played any of those games? Even heard of them?
Dark Pictures and so I'm gonna probably say no. The Resident Evils, the Silent Hills,
Mm-hmm.
I've done those. The Telltale, I know of that because I actually have been playing the Walking Dead, and the farm scene was pretty creepy and gross and
Yep.
whoa. Um, but those are the ones that I've been kind of playing. Like Silent Hill, I mean, the graphics weren't the best, the first one, but if you played it, you just will never forget the ringing. That when you walked in a room, it was all dark and you heard the ring, and you're like, oh no, those creepy little things with they were like ball babies or whatever with knives,
Uh,
and you're like, oh my goodness. And then what was it? It was the radio, right? The radio would go off, and you'd always be like, ah. So I remember playing those, and then it didn't even matter if the graphics were good or not. It was gripping, and it locked you in. You were like, whoa. And it's just like the Resident Evil game. I had put that on one of your things, like, hey, throw it out there.
mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget the story. And this is broad daylight, right? I'm sitting there playing Resident Evil, I think it was part 2. And you're walking down a hall, and all of a sudden the liquor crashed through the window. And me and my buddy were like, holy smoke. And we jump up, and you're like, whoa. And I know most people wear the headphones anyways. I have to because my hearing's not the best. But when you put that on and you're in, whew, you hear everything.
Yep.
And it brings you in. It's just like, all right, Dead Space. You ever played Dead Space?
A little bit, yeah. Not much, but I played it a little bit.
That one, again, just amazing. Like, if they ever decided to go and make that into a movie franchise, that would be amazing. Because they tried with the Resident Evils, and I think they've fallen short a few times. Silent Hill, same thing. Just never
Mm-hmm.
really captured what we were looking for as far as what the game did.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I got on the Resident Evil kick, and I hadn't played in a long time. And then the last year, finally was like, all right, time to get back at it. I had only gone up to 4, and then boom, 5, got 6 done. But I'm going to tell you this is an interesting thing on PAX. which is the Penny Arcade video game expo they would have in four
Mm-hmm.
different regions. Seattle. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when we lived over there, I would go to every year, and they had Biohazard. So it was Resident Evil 7 Biohazard in 3D, VR, not 3D, VR.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing demos, and it was like, okay, I'll give it a whirl. So you go in and you sit down, you put the goggles on, you're like, all right. And as you're seeing in the screen, and you look down, you're in a chair. Now you're holding the controller. So when you can hold the controller and you look down, it looks like you're handcuffed.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, you look around, and there's a dead guy in the corner, and you're like, okay, dead guy in the corner. I'm in a dark room. I'm kind of handcuffed here with rope, actually, not handcuffed, rope. All of a sudden, in the background, you see somebody go, you're like, oh, like, what was that? And all of a sudden, because it's a short demo, but it,
Mm-hmm.
it drove home like what this game was going to be about in VR.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, right, Dustin? All of a sudden, here comes these fingers like this coming down. You're like, oh, yeah. And then you look down and you see this knife coming through your torso. And it's like, what? And then the girl comes around and just jumps through the screen, and then the demo ends. And I'm like, okay, I don't know about that one. But yeah, it's one of those weird, crazy ones. Like if you don't like mannequins in horror movies, there's mannequins in this one. And you walk
Mm-hmm.
up the stairs, and there's no mannequin. You're like, all right, I'm going to leave this room. And you turn, and there's a mannequin. Where did the mannequin come from?
Yeah.
So it's all that stuff. But those games, like I said, it's a love-hate thing. I hate playing them because they're freaking me out.
Mm-hmm.
But I love playing them because of that. It's almost like this weird adrenaline rush, and you just want to continue on, and you're like, all right, I'm going to take a break. Oh, wait, no, I want to play another one.
Yep. Yep. No, and so the VR, we actually got surprised by Santa Claus this year, and we all got some VR headsets, my kids and me.
Okay.
So I can tell you, playing a horror game on a console versus playing a horror game on the VR, I mean, it's
Okay.
almost no contest. Now, granted, the graphics on the newer generation consoles, even like because I had an Xbox One X, which was similar to the PS4. Um, as far as graphics and everything, has the HDR, 4K graphics and all. Like playing it on a nice TV, it looks great. The sound is great.
Yes.
I went out and bought myself a pair of Dolby Atmos headphones. You
Mm-hmm.
know, playing a console video game on a big screen TV is really cool if graphics are your thing. Um, Now on the MetaQuest, as they call it now, we got the MetaQuest 2s. Those are the ones, yeah, those are the ones that we got for Christmas. Now, it's high definition. It's not 4K. It's high def. It's like
Right, right.
1080, It's like 1080, but most of the video game, now that's if you're watching a movie or something, but most of the video games are pretty. I don't know what exactly the ratio would be, but it's not quite high def. Some of them are, but most of them aren't quite high def. So you're not going to get the super crisp and clean graphics as you are with a next gen console. But
Right.
I can tell you, playing a horror video game on a VR headset with the Dolby Atmos headphones, dude, I literally was getting like sweaty palms,
Yeah.
anxiety, like the feeling you want to get from a scary movie, I got from a video game playing it on a VR.
Right.
And then someone turned me on to the idea. They're like, well, you can watch, Netflix and stuff through your VR headset. And I was like, really?
Oh.
And yeah, sure enough, like Netflix, Amazon Prime, those are like the two main ones that you can get on there. Like they actually have a VR app for it, and there's some really cool content. Some of the others you just kind of have to go to their website because there's a web browser on the MetaQuest. So like for Tubi, to watch the free horror movies and stuff on Tubi, you just go to their website and watch it from there. Um,
Okay.
but I can also tell you that watching a horror movie on the VR headset because it's not in VR, it's not in like 3D,
Right. Right.
but so you can pick like a theme basically, so you can create your own like theater in there.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, and you can have like watch parties with your buddies. Say your buddy has a VR, like say you had a VR,
Right, right.
you and I could have this podcast in VR. Like we could make
Okay.
yeah,
Right,
we could make a room and meet up kind of like we're doing now on this conference call type deal. We could meet up and actually be sitting next to each other. You're in Tennessee, I'm in Texas, but we could actually be sitting next to each other in a room, talking. Now, granted, it would be our avatars. It wouldn't really be us. Like
right, right.
I couldn't see John. You couldn't see Dustin. It would be,
Hey, how you doing?
yeah,
Hey,
like that would
oh,
be cool. I think that would be awesome. And maybe that's
right.
coming. Who knows? But it'd be our avatars. But like I do it with my oldest son from time to time. He's still up in Seattle. He's
Oh, yep.
almost 21 years old. So once in a while, I'm like, let's get on the VR. And it's the closest thing I can get to like being in a movie theater with him because you can create like they have movie theater themes. They've got just like man cave theater den type. I mean it's really
Right.
cool. So that's what I did. I just created like this, you know, ultra. You don't really create it. I shouldn't say create because it's all pre-made rooms.
Right, right.
You pick one.
You can customize.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I don't even know that. It's just you get to pick one, but it's got like
Right.
30 different choices and you just pick one. And then you name it, whatever room. So that's what I did. I just, picked the room. It looks like a movie theater or whatever. And you sit back and you can watch a movie. It's like watching it on a theater screen. It really is because
Right.
you're in the VR headset and I mean it looks and feels as though you're actually in a movie theater. And then with the Dolby Atmos headphones, man, like
Yeah,
you said,
yeah,
you can
yeah.
you can hear the clicking and stuff like
Oh, yeah.
if they put it in like 7.1 surround sound, like you can hear stuff coming from behind you, and you're like
Right.
looking, it's like
Yeah,
whoa. So
yeah.
that's that's next level. I can tell you right there. That's worth the price alone of a VR headset. Is if you want to watch a scary movie or like an action movie or something, a thriller.
Yeah.
If you want to get the full experience, do it in a VR headset, man, because it is a game changer.
Oh, wow. Well, here's another one to add to the game since we're talking about horror game on VR.
Hmm.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yep.
Another one. My kids, Dad, you gotta try it out. Okay, put it on, and it's like it's all these dark, and you got the flashlight or whatnot, and when you have it on them, they pause, and then you turn, then you come back, and they're a little closer to you, and they have
Yep.
these teeth, and they make a noise when they're scraping metal or something, and woo. So yeah, and they'll just sit there, and you'll whoa, and
Yep.
but yeah, actually found out that that movie finally is in production,
Yep.
and I saw the first trailer, and I'm like, they're finally gonna do like the real thing for this. So they're into it. Fine, we're gonna roll with that too.
Yeah. And that'll
Yep.
be a fun movie, I think. I'm excited to see that one. I really am. I think that'll be a fun one. Because they tried a couple of years ago. They didn't call it Five Nights at Freddy's, but
No,
the one with
Nicolas
Nicolas
Cage.
Cage, yeah, which
Yep.
Willy's
He loved
Wonderland.
it.
It's
Yeah, he loved it. And I was like, okay, I see where they were going. Basically everything other than Fazbear there, Freddy.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it just I didn't think they could. They did, and here we go. We'll definitely be checking that one out for sure.
Heck yeah, I'd like to see that one too. So I'm gonna go ahead and address this now too, because you got the Jason mask on.
Ah,
So Jason, since we're talking about 80s, icons and things like that, have you seen all the Friday the 13th movies?
no,
Haven't seen
I
all?
have not.
Okay.
I have not seen all of them. They just started getting carried on, and I kind of got like, wait, Jason in space here? What are we
Yeah.
doing here?
Yeah.
And he got to Manhattan and came out of the water, and you're like, okay. And but it's funny. It's like we didn't touch on a whole lot, but one of the ones in 3D when they still were trying to get movies to be in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
I did catch that one. But yeah, I think I saw the first four.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
saw all the good ones, basically.
all the good ones, right?
Yeah. No, because full disclosure, I don't know that I've seen every one of them start to finish. I know that I've seen every one of them, but
Okay,
I don't think any. Maybe that's the problem. Is there's a few that just aren't memorable enough to, to say, oh yeah, I've seen that one for sure, definitively. Um,
right.
but my question, where I was going with that, is they made a Freddy versus Jason.
Yes.
I enjoyed that movie. I liked it. Um, I don't know that it was the outcome that I was looking for because if I'm being honest, I think Freddy could probably kick the shit out of Jason. And I'm just curious what your thoughts on that are.
Okay, so it's just like the Godzilla King Kong
Yep,
thing.
yep.
Now we're gonna do Freddy and Jason
Freddy and Jason.
versus thing.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, when Jason has his big hatchet, that's pretty menacing. But the claws are, pretty menacing as well. I would say that Freddy could be probably more nimble and quick. With Jason's bigger and not as fast, but he's super strong. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, uh, I understand where you're coming from. I just think if Jason gets a hold of you, he's gonna just break your back, and we're gonna move forward.
And you could be onto something with that. I think the fight scene in Freddy versus Jason was pretty spot on because what you just described is that's what they did in the movie. Freddy is pretty quick and nimble and jumping all over Jason and just stabbing him with the claws. And I think they used more fake blood in that movie than they've used in any movie ever. Um,
Right.
and yeah, Jason is so big and strong. I think if he gets a hold of you, yeah, he's just going to break your body and that's going to be the end of it. But since Freddy's technically already dead, like you can't really kill him. Now I know Jason's already dead too, so can you really kill either one of them? Is the
Right.
question. Can either one of them really be dead, or the fact that they're both technically already dead? Like, are they demons? Like, can they kill each other? They never really did address an actual winner at the end of that movie because if you've ever seen it, you know that the ending scene, it's like Jason. You've seen the movie, right? Have you seen it or no?
I have not.
Okay, okay. So it's an old movie. So Freddy versus
Yeah.
Jason.
Well, you know,
It was made in like 2002 or something. It's old. So then okay, so since you haven't seen it, I won't give away the ending, but they I'll just say there was no real clear winner, you know. Um, but it is man, it's a fun watch. If you're a fan of the 80s campy slashers I'm a sucker for the 80s campy slashers, the where the acting is so terrible, like it just makes you sick. I
yeah.
love them. I love those movies. Um, and that is a fun watch. So if you ever do find yourself having about 2 hours of free time, throw that on because I think it's free to watch
Oh yeah,
on
I on demands and such. And again, with all the platforms, I'm sure it's on
it's yeah,
there.
it's free on something,
Um,
I'm sure.
so here's a easy question. Easy question to the host.
Okay.
Is it Robert Englund or Jackie Earl Haley? Who's better?
Oh well, come on now. Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah. Robert England is Freddy. Jackie Earle Haley was something. I'll say that it was.
See, and even though he's much older and has done a bunch of different movies, to me, he's Kelly League, baby. Always.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not gonna say he didn't play a good Freddy because he did. I
Right.
I like
It's
Jackie
just
Earle. I like Jackie Earle Haley. I think that was a good movie. Like again, that's another one that gets a lot of hate. There's people out there that are like, "Oh, they fucking murdered a classic, and they should have never made that piece of crap," and blah blah blah. Whatever. Say what you want about the movie. I think it was a really good movie. I think that they did probably a better job at giving the backstory of Freddy than any of the originals, and I might get crucified for saying that, but I said it.
Right.
I think that they did a really good job of telling the backstory of Freddy. I just think they did a terrible job with the makeup and the costume. Like they're the
Oh yeah, the
Fred,
makeup was a little off,
yeah, like
realistically.
that wasn't Freddy. Like if you're gonna remake a classic like
Mm,
Freddy, I mean, I, I can't think of much bigger classics in the horror genre that you got your Freddy, you got Jason, you got Michael Myers, Leatherface. I mean, there's the classics. People know who these people are. If you're gonna walk in to an executive's office as a movie producer, filmmaker, and say, "I'm gonna remake Nightmare on Elm Street," you better damn well nail Freddy.
right.
Like even and I think that's where that movie failed is the story was so good, but Freddy was so bad it killed the movie, and that's really unfortunate because if you're gonna remake Freddy, you have to nail Freddy. You can't half-ass Freddy. Like you just can't do it. I mean, they
Don't be
re
messing with Freddy, man.
no right you can't like they remade Friday the 13th, 10, 12 years ago or something. They remade that.
Yes.
And I mean, it was Jason. There was nothing different. It
Yeah,
was
well,
Jason.
yeah, you really can't mess that one up though, as far
No,
as the costume design and whatnot. But it's just like you got John Carpenter's Halloween, you got Rob Zombie's Halloween.
right.
You know, and I get it. There's purists. I'm one of those when it comes to a lot of things where you don't want them to redo or is it a reboot, if you will,
Hmm.
things. You want to stick with that. So I understand when and why they do it because they just want to get the buzz going again. It could sometimes they'll recreate it where it's more relatable in our world now than it was maybe
Sure,
then.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately you're gonna like what you like, and like you said, you have more of an appreciation in the end of what goes into this. Because as we were talking, it reminded me of something. So you have Netflix, correct?
Not currently actually, because with everything we got going on, Netflix is just, it's kind of an unjustified expense with how
Okay.
expensive Netflix is nowadays because if you want to watch it on more than one screen, if you want to watch it in
Yes.
the ultra high def, which I've got a freaking 8K TV, like of course I want to watch it in the best
Right.
possible quality sound and video because I've also got the Dolby Atmos surround sound. Like I've got a pretty nice setup to be watching stuff. So for 21 or $22 a month, I can't really justify that right now because I just don't watch enough on there. But yes, to answer your question, long story short, yes, I do have Netflix, but this month and probably next, I probably won't.
Okay. So before you move on, if you haven't already, there's a segment on there called "The Movies That Made Us."
Yep, seen that. Yep,
It okay. It's outstanding because we're talking the original Halloween, we're
yep,
talking Nightmare on Elm Street,
yep.
and everything that was involved. Where it always blows my mind where some of these movies were literally on the cusp of not even being made for whatever reason. I mean, you know, movie studios and money, and this one and that one didn't like this guy, and he cast it wrong, and he got in trouble.
Hmm.
But love it. It's called The Movies That Made Us, and I just didn't know if you had seen Aliens. They did one on Alien. They did one on, again, Friday the not for,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Halloween, Nightmare, and you're just like Nightmare on Elm Street. They did that. Their budget was like nothing.
Yeah,
It was great. In Halloween, their budget was like nothing. And I mean, wow. So yeah, it's awesome stuff.
yeah. No, that's I haven't seen every episode, but yes, I have seen some of the show. It is a very good show, and again, I do plan on getting Netflix again in the future and going back and revisiting, because obviously Stranger Things, that's a Netflix
Oh,
show. Like I can't watch
yeah.
Stranger Things without Netflix. So
Right.
Cobra Kai is now a Netflix show.
Oh,
So another
yeah.
one, that's not
Right.
horror, but freaking phenomenal show, you know.
Right.
Um,
It's bringing us back to our time in the 80s again.
right,
Anything that
right,
can bring us back, man, we're all in.
right. Well,
One other one, it's not on the movies that made us, but very similar. Because I love that when they dive into talking about how the movies were made and the idea of it and the screenwriting. Um, Silence of the Lambs was another great one.
mm-hmm.
That all went down, and I'm like, wow. So, and Jaws. Jaws is that Steven Spielberg goes out there and they had a shark and they make this big mechanical shark and they're like, we got a problem. What? We got this shark in the salt water. Not really working right.
Yeah.
Oops.
Whoops.
Yep.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I'm a fan of a good documentary, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a total fan of a good documentary. But going back now, so since we're talking about the movies that made us and our favorite, you know, decade being the 80s, reboots.
Yeah.
Because we were kind of touching on reboots. I'm curious to know what your thoughts on reboots are. And then I'll give you mine. But reboots, yes or no?
As a traditionalist and a purist, no.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. And I agree with you. As a purist and a traditionalist, yes, I agree. The classics are the classics. Don't mess with them. But and
There's the butt.
there's a but. There's a but.
There's the
And
butt.
again, this is another thing that might get me crucified, but you know, at the end of the day, I said what I said. I like reboots, kind of for the same reason that I hate them. So I like reboots because number one, and this is probably, I don't know if this is a justifiable excuse, but for me, okay, so think about back in, 1983 or 84, the first time you saw Nightmare on Elm Street, right? It creeped you the hell out. It
Right.
did. I was just a little kid hanging out with my uncle because my uncles are the assholes that did all this to me. They're babysitting me like, oh yeah, let's watch this movie, nephew. Like it'll only traumatize you for years. So that's how I got introduced to horror was from my uncles. But anyway, that feeling, that creeped out feeling, a lot of people are constantly searching for that. Like I belong to several horror groups on Facebook, and that's probably the number one request or post or anything that I see in all these horror groups is somebody recommend me a movie that'll actually scare me because I've seen them all and I'm not scared at anything, blah 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 blah. Say, whatever. It's all the
Right.
same story, just different words. With a reboot, I feel now, will you be scared on a reboot? Maybe not. But with a reboot, you get that feeling of seeing the movie for the first time again.
Okay.
And to me, that's what I enjoy about a reboot. Now, have any of them been good? Not very many. And I also think at the end of the day, yeah, they're taking a classic and doing whatever they're doing with it. But at the end of the day, you still have the classic. Like
Right.
it's not like they took the classic and just canceled it. Like, okay, this classic no longer exists because we rebooted it. Like, love it or hate it, the reboot, love or hate the reboot. Either way, you still got the classic. So if the reboot sucks,
Yeah.
you still got the classic. Like, it's not like the classic went anywhere. So
Right.
as a purist and a traditionalist, I agree with you. The classics are the classics. They're never going to be changed, and they'll probably never be remade better. But
Right.
if you're a person like me that just loves to have that feeling of seeing something great for the first time, a reboot kind of gives that to me. And I can't speak for everybody, but like when the new Nightmare on Elm Street came out, in 2000, shit, I don't know when it was, but it was in the last decade. The reboot came out. I was stoked. I was like, this is going to be freaking awesome. I get to see Freddy for the first time again.
Yeah.
So that's that's my soapbox. I'll get off of it now. But that, to me, that's why
Well,
I enjoy reboots.
one last one on that too, like Poltergeist.
Yeah,
Not even close. I
right,
mean, there's only one Carol Ann, and unfortunately, she passed later at such
right,
a young age.
right.
Odd as it may be, but I mean that one was like groundbreaking. That was amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and
Well,
I'm sure they're gonna continue on and do reboots and. But speaking of movies, I think the latest one, The Boogeyman, might have a sense of that I want to get scared, I want to be freaked out, and so
hmm,
far it could be one of the ones.
it could be, and I'm pretty excited about it. I want to see it. It does look
Yeah,
creepy. It does look creepy as hell. I think I think horror is probably going to start making a comeback. I think, kind of like music. Music finally kind of started to make a comeback. You know, I'm a rock and metal guy. I mean, I love country. I like all kinds of music, but primarily
right.
I'm a rock and metal guy. And I think we can all agree that the '80s was the best for rock and metal.
Yeah, Metallica.
I mean, the '70s were great. The '60s were great. I'm not taking anything away from Led Zeppelin and Leonard Skinner. I'm not taking anything away from those phenomenal, fantastic bands. But I think the '80s was the hair bands and the metal was
Yeah,
where it was at. And I think
yeah, yeah,
during the early 2000s up through the 2010s, rock kind of took a turn for the worse. But I think that's starting to make a little bit of a comeback. I think the same thing can be said for horror. I think horror kind of started to go a certain way, and I think now it's, at least what I hope is, it's starting to make a comeback. And as a again, I almost feel like I have imposter syndrome calling myself a filmmaker because, again, I'm not James Cameron, I'm not Steven Spielberg, I'm not John Carpenter, but as a filmmaker,
yes,
I hope to take, so found footage. That's the primary genre that I really love, in subgenre, I should say. That's the subgenre of horror that I like the most: found footage, mockumentary, screen life, POV, all that. Which is what my movie is. It's a found footage, screen life slash mockumentary film. I hope to be one of the ones that can contribute to that changing to something really great. Kind of like what the '80s did for horror movies. I hope myself, Dylan Brown, Ash Hamilton, Bill Howard, Ron Chevery, a lot of these guys I've talked to on the podcast or just talked to in private. I hope we can do that for the found footage horror subgenre,
right.
is changing, because there's your purists for that too. There's people that hate it when you put music in found footage, because if it's supposed to be a camcorder or a phone that was found out in the woods after somebody got killed, then there wouldn't be music in it. Okay, that's true, but somebody found the footage. Who's to say they didn't find it, pick it up, take it back, and edit it and say, okay, this is now my movie?
Right.
So there's your purists with found footage, and then there's folks like myself and Dylan Brown and all those other guys that I named that say, nah, fuck the rules. Like, you can kind of do what you want with this. So, um, anyway, yeah, I won't beat that dead horse any more than I have to either. Um, but yeah, Boogeyman looks really good. Oh, there was another one. Um, Dang it, I can't remember it. Anyway, there's there's some good ones coming out, that I'm really super excited for. The Boogeyman is one of them. That looks really good. Dang it, I wish I could remember it. There was another one. I think it's like just in production now. I don't even think there's a trailer, but
Uh,
it's like something I read somewhere. Anyway, it couldn't have been that damn exciting if I can't remember it now. Um,
you know what I find interesting, because usually when you see a movie or a documentary or something from where you lived, you're like, oh my god, you'll watch it just because of that.
mhm.
Did you watch *Malignant*?
Malignant. No, I don't think I've seen Malignant.
Because it's based out of Seattle, and like
Okay.
you know how they used to have the underground city tours.
Uh huh.
That there was a lot of that in that movie where there's this creepy being thing that just had escaped, and I'm like, they're in Seattle. All right, this is cool. Let's walk that. It's not bad. You can take a peek because again, it'll make you feel a little bit like you're at home at times. So you'll have that little correlation in that regard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I know that I want to check that one out because, again, being part of a lot of horror groups on Facebook, that's one of those movies that there's there doesn't seem to be a lot of gray area. People love it or they freaking hate it.
Right.
And most of the consensus that I've seen anyway is that a lot of people don't like it. So that probably means that I will like it because I don't know. I always seem to be the oddball that likes all the shit that people don't like and
You're
don't like the stuff
defiant.
that
I'm gonna like it.
I
Damn it.
guess.
You
Yeah.
don't.
Well, it's like, okay, so Skinamarink and The Outwaters. I don't know if you've seen those two movies, but they're both newer movies. Kind of found like that's one thing that's a big sore subject with a lot of people is it they're called found footage, but a lot of people are saying they're not found footage and blah blah blah. You have to watch them to see. I personally think that they both fit into the criteria to be found footage. Um, but I would say a good 90% of people that have seen those two movies absolutely freaking hate them, shit all over them, can't stand them, think you're a piece of shit if you do like them. Like I've seen some legit wars going on in some of these Facebook groups over these two movies.
Oh God.
I've been in a couple heated debates myself on these movies because it's like I happen to enjoy them. I happen to think they're both really good, game-changing, genre changing, phenomenal movies. I really do. And not only that, they're both from well, I don't think that because I think Robbie Banfitch has done other stuff. But I they're both like Skinamarink is Kyle Edward Ball. That's his first movie. Um and The Outwaters is Robbie Banfitch's first like known movie. And I don't want to say something that's wrong, so I'll leave it at that. But anyway, they're both like really low budget found footage horror films. I think they're freaking phenomenal. Skinamarink you can watch on Shudder, which if you have a subscription to AMC Plus, you get Shudder included. And then The Outwaters is exclusive to Screambox, which once upon a time Screambox wasn't all that. I now have a subscription to Screambox. It's one of the cheaper ones. It's like $5 a month, and it's got some really good stuff on there. It's people are fans of Terrifier 1 and 2. It's got those on there. It's got a lot of really good horror on there. But Outwaters is on Screambox. Skinamarink is on Shudder. Um, really good game-changing found footage movies. I think that's just my recommend. If you haven't seen them, I would find a way to check them out. It's the sound design. That's where I was going with that story. It's the sound design that creeps me out. It's not.
Okay.
They're not like visually scary jump scare type movies. Now, like Skinamarink especially, I won't even get into that because it's hard to describe. But like literally almost. So it's one of those movies where nothing happens, but a lot is actually happening. If that makes sense.
Right.
It's like the guy literally filmed an hour and a half of the floor, walls. I mean, like the people that hate it, that's what they say. They're like, I'm not going to watch an hour and a half of a guy filming a corner. Like, okay, yes, that's what he filmed in the movie, but if you pay attention to the sound design and the story that's being told, it is a creepy, creepy, creepy freaking movie.
Right.
And then The Outwaters has a lot more going on. I'll say that. But it's filmed through like a toilet paper tube, like you can't. He's got a flashlight this big that over half the movie is just, Anyway, so yeah,
Right.
those two movies that get me crucified a lot. So I won't go into that too much. I don't know how much time you have left. If you want to keep going, if you want to hit it, we can call it a day.
I'd be honest with you. I'm in a position where I want to continue on, but I got a little message hitting me up on the phone about something else that I got to handle.
Okay.
But definitely would love to do this again.
Yep.
Talk about more stuff because we still have more stories and things to share. Obviously, we always when we get going,
Yep.
we can go on all night. But I definitely appreciate you having me on,
Mhm.
no doubt. I do want to say, in the end, you stay true to who you are, and you keep the passion for what you're doing. And no matter what anybody can say, it can't affect you because you are who you are. You made the movie the way you want to make it. You're gonna do a lot of great things. But that's the biggest thing I could take away is I want you to just stick to those guns. You're Dustin. You are who you are. Nobody's gonna change that, and I respect that.
Well, thank you, sir. That really does mean a lot coming from you because we've been friends going on a while now. So I do appreciate that. And yeah, man, anytime you're definitely the invite to you is it's in its own category where I like you're one of the ones that I'll drop what I'm doing to get a podcast going with you. So yeah, we can nerd
Yeah.
out anytime you want because this is now my longest episode at over an hour and 10 minutes,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
literally just us nerding out. So yeah, I'll nerd out with you anytime, sir. I know you got to run, so I won't keep you. But thank you for coming on the show, and yeah, let's do it again real soon.
Yeah. The next time will be another classic mask. We'll kind of stay true to form on that. But thank you for tonight, and have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day for everybody that's out there.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right, buddy. Well, we will talk to you later.
All righty.
All right.